Such is the variety of existing measures and the sort of wisdom necessary for perceiving all their nuances. Now let us imagine what may happen if there should be a harmful many-mindedness among the mayors on this subject. Here is what. In one town, the mayor will be content with sensible orders, while in another neighboring town, another mayor, under the same circumstances, will start shooting. And since we learn everything by word of mouth, this absence of like-mindedness may instill a justified perplexity and even many-mindedness in the townsfolk. Of course, people should always be ready to endure all sorts of measures, but even so, they are not to be deprived of their right to gradualness. In an extreme case, they can even demand that they should first be given orders and only then be shot at. For, as I've already said, if a mayor starts shooting without calculation, in time he will have no one left to give orders to, and thus administrative economy will again cease to exist, and the majestic administrative harmony will again be disrupted. I also said that a mayor should encourage learning. That is so, but here too it is necessary to consider what sort of learning. There are various kinds of learning. Some deal with fertilizing the fields, with building human and animal dwellings, with military valor and insuperable firmness. This is useful learning. Others, on the contrary, deal with the harmful free-thinking of Freemasons and Jacobins, with certain notions and rights supposedly natural for human beings, including even the structure of the universe. Those are all harmful. What will happen if one mayor starts promoting the first kind and another the second? First, the latter will be put on trial and thereby be deprived of his pension. Second, there will be harm and not benefit from it for the people. For if they should meet somewhere between two towns, the inhabitant of one would ask about fertilizing the fields, and the inhabitant of the other would respond by talking about the natural organization of the world. And thus, having talked to each other, they would go their separate ways. Consequently, the necessity and benefit of mayoral like-mindedness is obvious. Having developed this matter in a suitable fullness, let us begin to discuss the means of its realization. To this end, I propose briefly 1. To set up a special institute for educating mayors. Mayors having a special destiny should also receive a special education. Mayors ought to be weaned from their mother's breasts and brought up not on ordinary mother's milk, but on the milk of the governing senate's decrees and the regulations of the authorities. This is true mayoral milk, and he who is nourished on it will be firm in like-mindedness and will perform his mayoral duties zealously and strictly. Meanwhile, other food should be taken in moderation with an unconditional abstention from drink, and with respect to morals, there should be a constant reminder that the exacting of arrears is the first mayoral duty and responsibility. To satisfy the imagination, pictures will be permitted. They might portray, for instance, a finance minister sitting on an empty chest and howling loudly. Or they might portray the figure of a local cadet with the inscription, "A candidate for mayor or dying of love," end of quote. Of subjects, 3 should be taught. A, arithmetic as the necessary tool for exacting arrears. B, instructions for clearing the streets of dung. And C, the science of the gradual application of measures. Leisure time should be occupied by the reading of government regulations and stories from the lives of valorous administrators. It must be predicted that such a system will assure A, that the mayors will be firm, and B, that they will not flinch. 2, to publish pertinent guidebooks. This is necessary in view of eliminating certain vile weaknesses. Though nurtured on strict mayoral milk, a mayor is nevertheless organized as a human being and consequently has some natural needs. One of these needs, and the principal one, is for the enticing female sex. It is impossible to exaggerate how pressing it is and what great harm comes from it for the treasury. There exist mayors who lust every moment and, being in this pitiful state, leave government orders unconfirmed for whole months. It is imperative in such cases that guidebooks forewarn the mayors on the subject of this pernicious need and urge them to keep their marital bed in good order. The second, quite pernicious weakness is the penchant of mayors for refined food and excellent wines. There are mayors who eat such a quantity of the sterlets supplied by the merchants that in a short time they grow fat and become quite indifferent to the prescriptions of their superiors. On these occasions, too, it is imperative to refresh the mayors with guiding articles and in extreme cases even to threaten them with strict mayoral milk. Finally, the third most vile weakness, here several lines of the manuscript are missing, because the author, intending to pour sand on the written part, mistakenly used ink. There is a note in the margin, quote, "This place is covered with ink by mistake," end of quote. 3, to organize from time to time secret assemblies of mayors in provincial capitals. At these assemblies, to entertain them by reading the guidelines for mayors and refreshing their memory in regard to mayoral learning. To admonish them to be firm and unheeding. And 4, to introduce a universal system of mayoral rewards. But this is such a vast subject that I hope to speak of it separately. Having been thus established in the very center, mayoral like-mindedness will inevitably lead to general like-mindedness. Every townsperson, seeing that mayors A, give orders like-mindedly, B, also shoot like-mindedly, will thus prepare like-mindedly for these measures. For there will be nowhere to escape from such like-mindedness. Consequently, there will be neither quarreling nor discord, but only orders and shooting everywhere. In conclusion, I will say a few words about mayoral autocracy and other things. This is also necessary because without mayoral autocracy, mayoral like-mindedness is also impossible. On this account, opinions vary. Some, for instance, say that mayoral autocracy consists in subduing the elements. One mayor said to me personally, "What sort of mayors are we, brother? The sun rises every day in the east, and I am unable to give an order that it should rise in the west." Although these words belong to a truly exemplary mayor, even so I cannot praise them. For one should wish only for something that can be attained. If you wish for something unattainable, as, for instance, the taming of the elements, the suspension of the course of time, and the like, you thereby not only do not exalt mayoral power, but embarrass it still more. Therefore, a mayor's autocratic rule should be regarded not from the viewpoint of sunrise or some other hostile elements, but from the viewpoint of the assessors, counselors, and secretaries of various state departments, executive boards, and courts. In my opinion, all those persons are harmful, for they hinder a mayor in his, so to speak, unceasing administrative course. Here this extraordinary piece of writing breaks off. Further follow only brief notes such as testing the pen, polywannacracker, report, etc. 2. On the seemly appearance of all mayors, written by the mayor, Prince Xavery Georgievich Mikoladze. This manuscript is several pages long in quarto. The orthography is quite good, but it must be mentioned that the author used lined paper. Publisher. It is imperative that a mayor have a seemly appearance, that he should be neither fat nor skinny, nor not enormously tall, but also not too short, proportionate in all the parts of his body, and have a clear face, not disfigured by warts or, God forbid, malignant rashes. His eyes should be gray, capable of expressing both mercy and severity according to circumstances. A suitable nose. Above all, he must wear a uniform. Excessive corpulence, just as excessive leanness, may have equally unpleasant consequences. I knew a mayor who, though he had excellent knowledge of the laws, was not a success because the quantity of fat accumulated inside him suffocated him. I knew another mayor, a very skinny one, who also had no success because as soon as he appeared in his town, the townsfolk immediately nicknamed him Pharaoh's lean kine. And after that, not one of his orders could have any effective force. On the other hand, a mayor who is neither fat nor skinny, even if ignorant in matters of law, will always be successful, for he is brisk, fresh, quick, and always ready. What is said above about fatness and leanness can also be applied to a mare's height. This height should be between 5.5 and 6 feet. Remarkable are the examples of non-compliance with this rule, so negligible at first sight. I personally know of 3 such examples. In one of the Volga provinces, the mare was over 7 feet tall. And what then? An inspector of small stature arrived in that city, became indignant, started intriguing, with the result that this quite worthy man was taken to court. In another province, a mare of the same height suffered from a tapeworm of an extraordinary size. Finally, the third mare was so short that there was no room in him for extensive laws, and he died of strain. Thus all 3 suffered on account of inordinate height. To keep the parts of the body in good proportion is also important, for harmony is the foremost law of nature. Many mares have very long arms, and for that are eventually dismissed from their posts. Many are distinguished by an unusual development of their extremities or their unsightly smallness, which may seem ridiculous or shameful. This should be avoided at all costs, for nothing undermines authority so much as some unusual or conspicuous ugliness.